It can't be true. The man closed his eyes, regret etched deeply into his face, and nodded almost helplessly. She used Mark, he whispered, his voice heavy with sorrow. She took advantage of every contact, every secret he confided in her. Mark never imagined that the director herself was behind a dirty scheme, manipulating medications, exposing patients to dangerous experiments. When he found out, he was alone, and she destroyed him. The words hit Ruth like a brutal blow, forcing her to take a step back. A crushing pain tightened her chest as reality crashed over her like an unrelenting wave. It was her. Celeste, it was her who killed Mark. She did it, Ruth murmured, more to herself than to the man, her voice choked with fury. And now Grace. Grace is in danger. So is your grandson. Her hands trembled as the weight of everything settled on her shoulders. I was a coward, she admitted bitterly. I was afraid to confront Celeste. But you're the only one who can stop this. Rue. As soon as she got into the car and started the engine, determination surged within her like a flame reignited amidst chaos. This has to end today, she muttered under her breath, gripping the steering wheel tightly as the car gained speed. The dark road ahead stretched endlessly, an anguishing corridor where silence pressed down oppressively. Yet Ruth kept her eyes fixed ahead, her hands steady on the wheel. Each kilometre further was a step closer to the truth, and the confrontation she had been avoiding for so long. She had no idea what awaited her when she arrived at the intensive care unit, but she knew one thing: she wouldn't turn back. As she drove along the desolate road, the man's cell phone began to vibrate next to her, shattering the suffocating silence. Ruth glanced at the device, her heart racing as she saw Grace's name flashing on the screen. It was as if all her fears and hopes collided within her at once. With trembling fingers, she grabbed the phone, barely able to con. The limit? Hold on, TI tight. I'm almost there. Please, Grace, stay strong for a little longer. Grace's response came in a whisper, laden with despair. Ruth, I don't know what they're doing to me. I feel something strange, like I'm losing control of my own body. I don't know if I can hold on much longer. Her voice faltered, and Ruth could almost feel Grace's terror as if she were by her side. Please, you need to get here soon. I don't have the strength. I'm so scared. Grace, listen to every word. I'm going to get you out of there, even if I have to go through those doors alone. You just need to hold on. A little longer. Do you understand? Ruth shouted into the phone, her tone laden with a desperate promise. I'm on my way. I'm almost there. Don't close your eyes. Don't let them win. Did you hear me? I won't leave you behind. Please hold on. Think of William. He needs you as much as I need you. A weak sigh escaped Grace's lips, her breathing growing slower, but she still rep, her voice almost a moan. I'll try, Ruth, but it's in the life she had built with Mark. She knew now that family wasn't defined by blood, but by love. By the choices people made to care for one another, to stand by one another, no matter what. Mark grew older, his body slowing with age, but his spirit remained strong. Emma continued her work as a heart surgeon, saving lives and giving others the second chances she had been given. Together, they built a life of love, gratitude, and resilience. The lessons Emma had learned from her own story became a beacon of hope for others. Her patients, her friends, and the communities she became touched. She spoke openly about the dangers of prejudice, about the importance of treating everyone with respect, and about how justice always caught up with those who acted with bias. Her words, her actions, and her compassion rippled out into the world, leaving a legacy that would endure long after her story was told. In the end, Emma knew that her family had never truly been lost. Their spirit lived on in he. Grace, no! "Please, don't do this to me," she whispered, her voice choked with terror. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she touched Grace's cold, unresponsive skin. Behind her, the doctors and nurses murmured accusations and comments in low voices. "She'll be held responsible for this. This woman is a threat." But Ruth no longer heard them. All she could focus on was Grace's still form and the crushing weight of failure pressing down on her chest. Shaken but driven by a fierce determination, Ruth pulled herself off the floor. Her legs wobbled beneath her, but she steadied herself, fueled by a singular purpose. Each accusatory word from the doctors echoed in her mind like a hammer strike, but now she had clarity. The real culprit was about to be exposed, and no one, not even the hospital itself, could stop her. With firm steps, she marched to the hospital reception. Her eyes flashed with anger. "Don't worry. No one would ever suspect such a reputable institution." The officer's eyes darkened as they listened to the recording, and Ruth could feel the change in the air. The tension becoming thick and almost palpable. The lead officer's deep voice echoed through the lobby, each word laid with profound gravity. "These recordings are serious, ma'am. If this is true, the doctor will be held accountable for all the damage caused. Further investigations will be necessary, but this is a solid start," he stated, exchanging a glance with his partner. Hope kindled in Ruth's heart, a spark that made her believe, albeit hesitantly, that justice was finally within her grasp. However, before she could respond, the sound of firm footsteps echoed through the lobby, cutting the moment of hope short. Ruth turned and saw to her surprise Dr. Celeste entering, surrounded by a group of doctors and security guards. Her face impassive, but her gaze cold and cutting. Each of her steps seemed calculated, every movement indicating. Celeste hesitated, her eyes widening for a fleeting moment, a flicker of disbelief crossing her face. But she quickly masked it, forcing her voice into an impassive tone. "These people are desperate," she said, her words clipped and measured. "They've lost their loved ones and are looking for someone to blame where there is none. This hospital has always been guided by ethics and the safety of our patients." But even as she spoke, her voice faltered, betraying the cracks beneath her polished facade. Tristan stepped forward then, his finger pointed accusingly at Celeste, his face twisted with fury and anguish. "You took everything from me," he shouted, his voice raw with pain. "My son was stable, he had a chance, and you took it away. For money, for greed, and you still dare to lie?" A woman clutching her daughter's photo began to sob uncontrollably, tears streaming down her cheeks as she stared at Celeste. "My daughter was only 25 years old," she choked out. "She believed in you." The weight of her words pressed down on the room, thickening the already stifling atmosphere. In a final frenzied attempt, Celeste lunged toward Ruth, her face contorted with unchecked rage, but the officers held her back firmly, restraining her as she shrieked, "This isn't over! I'll bring you all down, all of you!" Her voice rose with each word, echoing down the hallways, until finally, the officers managed to handcuff her. As they dragged her away, her screams of hatred lingered like a menacing shadow, haunting the space she left behind. Ruth stood frozen, a mixture of horror and relief washing over her. Celeste's hysterical tirade confirmed everyone's worst fears, that the director was capable of destroying anyone who dared unmask her crimes. Amidst the chaos, nurses sprang into action, moving swiftly toward the wing where Grace was being treated. Their glances were laden with uncertainty and fear, but there was no hesitation. They knew they had to remain calm for Grace's sake. With "Saludos en Cristo, queridos hermanos y hermanas. Estamos muy agradecidos por su regreso a nuestro canal y rezo para que hoy te acerque a su gracia divina." Antes de sumergirnos en el importante mensaje de hoy, unámonos primero en oración, pidiendo la intercesión de nuestra bendita Madre. Mi espíritu se te da, María, hija amorosa de Dios, el Padre. Protege la vida de Dios en mi corazón. No me dejes perderlo por el pecado. Para que Dios acepte todos mis objetivos e ideas, debo proteger mi voluntad y mente. Lleno de gracia, el Señor está contigo. María, eres bendecido entre las mujeres, y también Jesús, el fruto de tu útero. Santa María, Madre de Dios, por favor ore por nosotros pecadores, tanto ahora como cuando sea hora de que muramos. Amén. Ahora, llegamos a un mensaje realmente profundo que ha sido compartido por Mirjana, un visionario de Medjugorje. Sus palabras han estado agitando corazones en todo el mundo, y te insto a que reflexionen profundamente sobre lo que ha compartido. Me? This is a conspiracy against me. Her words sliced through the tension-filled air, causing those around her to flinch in shock. Her accusations grew more frenzied, her body thrashing violently against the firm grip of the officers. You're all involved. Every nurse, every doctor, they knew. They benefited. She swiveled her head wildly, meeting each pair of eyes with piercing accusation. You have no idea what you've done. Want the truth? The truth is, I'm not the only one with blood on my hands. You'll find this whole hospital was complicit. Her words reverberated through the lobby, sending ripples of fear and uncertainty among the medical staff. Nurses and doctors exchanged horrified glances, their faces etched with dread as the weight of her claims settled over them like a suffocating cloud. In a final burst of defiance, Celeste lunged toward Ruth, her features distorted by unchecked rage. But the officers held her back firmly, restraining her as she shrieked, "This isn't over." Me! This is a conspiracy against me! Her words sliced through the tension-filled air, causing those around her to flinch in shock. Her accusations grew more frenzied, her body thrashing violently against the firm grip of the officers. You're all involved. Every nurse, every doctor, they knew. They benefited. She swiveled her head wildly, meeting each pair of eyes with piercing accusation. You have no idea what you've done. Want the truth? The truth is, I'm not the only one with blood on my hands. You'll find this whole hospital was complicit. Her words reverberated through the lobby, sending ripples of fear and uncertainty among the medical staff. Nurses and doctors exchanged horrified glances, their faces etched with dread as the weight of her claims settled over them like a suffocating cloud. In a final burst of defiance, Celeste lunged toward Ruth, her features distorted by unchecked rage. But the officers held her back firmly, restraining her as she shrieked, "This isn't over." She tried to rush forward, but one of the doctors grabbed her firmly by the shoulders, barring her path. "Ma'am, please," the doctor said, his voice firm but tinged with sympathy. "You need to wait here. We're doing everything we can, but we can't promise anything." The words hit her like a sledgehammer, cold and merciless. Ruth felt the ground slip away beneath her feet. Paralyzed, she watched the frantic scene unfold before her, the incessant beeping of the monitors. Each irregular pulse a cruel reminder of how fragile life truly was. With every shock applied to her grandson's small body, Ruth's heart shriveled further with fear. His face was pale, so small and frail, completely oblivious to the nightmare unfolding outside the room. "Please, my love," she sobbed, pressing her trembling hands against the glass door separating them. "You can't go. You can't leave me." Her voice cracked, barely audible, as though speaking louder would shatter what little remained of her resolve. "I'm he." Breaking as she held his small hand between hers, still cold but alive. He looked at her, his eyes a little confused, but in his gaze there was something familiar. A recognition that filled her with hope. You're my grandmother, aren't you?" His voice was weak, like a whisper, but laden with a sweetness that disarmed her. My father always talked about you." His words hit Ruth like a bolt of lightning, and she raised one hand to her face, feeling the tears finally escape in a stream. She could no longer hold back. She leaned forward to caress her grandson's pale face, love and gratitude overflowing from every touch. "Yes, my darling, I'm your grandmother, and I will never leave you again." Her voice was soft but firm, each word carrying a silent, eternal promise. She enveloped his small body in an embrace, the strength of her love seeming to sustain him. He nestled in her arms, fragile and tender, and Ruth felt as if all the weight of the pain she had carried had been replaced by a sense of peace. He hugged. In the twilight of his life, the man carried himself with a quiet seriousness, though his eyes betrayed a warmth that spoke volumes about the affection and respect he held for Ruth. In his hands, he clutched a small envelope, its edges worn as if it had traveled through time alongside him. When their eyes met, his gaze filled with a poignant mix of sadness and resolve. "Ruth," he began, his voice low and weighted with solemn reverence. "Mark asked me to deliver this to you. If things ever went wrong." He paused, taking a deep breath before extending the envelope toward her. Ruth's hands trembled as she accepted it, a swirl of curiosity and apprehension rising within her. The man looked down at the ground, as though words were failing him. "He wanted you to know how important you were to him, and to your grandson," he continued, his voice soft but steady. "This memory, it was everything he cherished most." Ruth managed a faint smile, brushing away the emotions threatening to surface. "See you there. Ask, explain, in the final years of his life, the man carried himself with a seriousness that commanded respect. Yet, there was an unmistakable warmth in his eyes, a quiet affection reserved only for Ruth. He held a small envelope delicately in his hands, and when their eyes met, hers brimming with curiosity and his heavy with sadness and resolve, he spoke. "Ruth," he began, his voice low but laced with solemn reverence. "Mark asks me to deliver this to you. If things ever went wrong." He paused, taking a deep breath, as though steadying himself before extending the envelope toward her. Ruth's hands trembled as she accepted it, a swirl of emotions, curiosity, apprehension, hope churning within her. Mark's friend glanced at the ground, struggling to find the right words. Finally, he continued, his voice softer now. "He wanted you to know how important you were to him and to your grandson. This memory, it meant everything to him. It's what he cherished most." If this story touched your heart, we invite you to share it with others who might appreciate its depth and meaning. Your support inspires us to keep crafting heartfelt narratives that resonate and connect. Stay tuned for our next tale. There's always another story waiting to unfold. Until then, thank you for being here with us. Ask, explain. In the twilight of his life, the man carried himself with a quiet gravity, his features lined with age and experience. Yet, There was an unmistakable warmth in his eyes, a kindness that softened the edges of his stern expression as he looked at Ruth. In his hands, he held a small envelope, its corners slightly worn from being clutched so tightly. When their eyes met, hers filled with questions and his with a deep sadness tempered by resolve. "Ruth," he began, his voice low but steady, carrying the weight of something sacred. "Mark asked me to deliver this to you, if things ever went wrong." He paused, drawing in a shaky breath. "B." He wanted his grandson to know where he came from, the man had told her earlier, to understand the love that brought him here. Ruth pressed the photo to her chest, feeling its warmth seep into her very bones. For a fleeting moment, it was as if Mark were there beside her, guiding, loving, protecting. She closed her eyes, letting the waves of grief and gratitude wash over her. When she finally opened them, she noticed the man still lingering near the doorway, watching her with tear-filled eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice frail but sincere, "for bringing him back to me in some way." He nodded, offering her a sad but understanding smile before turning to leave. As the door clicked shut behind him, Ruth returned to the living room, sinking onto the couch. She gazed at the drawing once more, running her fingers over the delicate lines. Though Mark was gone, his love remained an eternal thread woven into the fabric of her life and her grandson's. This portrait, humble yet profound,